Welcome to Land Language, the podcast transforming landscapes from toxic to regenerative. We're your host, Brit from Blueprint Earth,
and co-host Bethany from Bethany Rydmark Landscapes.
We explore beautiful, functional design through conversations with scientists, vendors, contractors, and designers who are changing the industry.
Whether you're in the field or at the drafting table, join us as we explore regenerative practices that care for people, place, and planet.
Let's dig in. We have the honor of having Jonathan Clay on today. He is the founder over at Kalos Project in Houston, Texas, which innovates urban spaces into permaculture-based constructed environments. And along the way, the true mission that he's been a part of, where I really anchored into his heart, was growing youth, growing people, and growing food. And I am so excited and honored to have you here because I think the true testament of how successful you are at that is your son. And I got to know your son before I got to know you. And 10 out of 10, I think he's one of the most amazing humans I've ever met. An innovative, smart, kind, connected young man. And somebody like that at that level only comes from a great man. So thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing with us. Thanks for sharing with us about how you grow humans and grow food. And I want to hear from you a little bit about the passion that brought you to wanting to initiate growing people. Because in some ways, I think that could be a lot harder than just growing food.
That's deep. Thank you. Before I take the credit of being the man that raised my son, probably one of the most grounded ways to connect on that level is when Brandon was getting older as a teenager. I would often say that I just got here on this plane 20 years before you did. So there's so much respect and connectedness when we humble ourselves. And there is no way that my son would be half the man that he is now without his mom. She saved all of us. And I love people. I love the youth. And it's why we're here. If we're not trying to change for them, then what are we doing? One of my guilty pleasures is listening to the comedian Tim Dillon, and he rants and raves about boomers. What did they leave us? What did they do to this place? And it's not necessarily them as much as is the society and the matrix that we grew up in. And so much of the corporate world is extracting. And so much of our farming and growing food is extracting. And so when we take permaculture principles and we work with closed loops on inputs, outputs, and how we compound growth, it's the same thing with people as it is with food.
You're looking at growing humans and working with the youth and celebrating their growth, right? What are some ways that you bring people, like when there are challenges within a relationship between you and a teammate, or a teammate and a teammate, like what are some ways that you bring people together to get through a challenge?
Yeah, so working with guys on site or even at the office, rage. And that rage with us is probably a window into what's going on in their home life. And when you talk to them from the very beginning that all of our conversations are not going to be fun and rainbows. This is hard work. It's hard to be a good person all the time and to treat people that are just annoying the living out of you. You really got to take a step back and realize that you shouldn't be taking this stuff personal. So we had a guy standing on the back of his truck, reading all of us our rights. I mean, and all we wanted him to do was get down off of the truck at a client's property. And it was diffusing the situation at first. And if you've ever met a guy after he loses his temper, the last thing he wants to do is talk about it. So the cool thing is we got work to do. Let's go. And then later it's, we need to talk about this. When is good for you? So I really believe asking permission is probably one of the first foundations of accountability. So if I start talking about the situation today before you're ready, well, I just made a bunch of assumptions. And that's not necessarily good to create a safe container to talk about this. We need to give this topic, whatever it is, respect, and to create boundaries in the container that we can talk to about it. And so that conversation quickly, with the way that I do things, you can say most things with a hug and a smile. It was, hey, I think we're seeing the carrot. We were seeing the greens of the carrot. I want to know what the carrot's like back home. And it turned into a bawling, two guys hugging on each other. And 2 days later, it happened again. And that's was actually when he received the best gift. He received my patience and my forgiveness and my understanding that this is a process, not a switch. And when he received that, things really took off. It was, oh, you're not here to judge me. Because, the mind is full of all these monkeys that are telling you, like, oh, he was just doing this to position that. And it's like, this is how he showed up the second time. I'm ashamed of myself for blowing up that way. And now my boss or the guy that I work for is, oh, okay. Like, he's not firing me. He's actually showing up. Yeah, dude, if I'm going to give you 2 or 3 of these, but just to know, I've got my own boundaries too. And when you hit it, sorry, buddy, we'll circle back in a couple of years.
I like that, just that system of where what's safe for boundaries from an owner perspective too. As a woman, as a female-bodied person, I think a lot about how sometimes I get mad at the guys, right? And I don't get mad at them. I get mad. They'll see that I'm disgruntled. But, a lot of times we kind of hold on to stuff as girls. We're like, that one time. And then it happens again and it's compounding and it's compounding. And, and I think that's just human. I don't necessarily think that's a female thing, but it's like, there's kind of these break points that cause resentment. And what I love about what you're sharing is just the opportunities to step in to create a safe container for like a mask for men in the industry. And then there's a couple things I've taken home from what you've said, like, never try to communicate with somebody when they are on their high horse, right? They're having their big emotional release, and they're mad. Ask yourself to take a step back and to say, okay, let's connect about this at a time that's good for you. And then the boundaries of like, you get 2 or 3 of these with mentorship and compassion, but there's also the boundary of like, you only really get 2 or 3 of these. And, then it's clear you're not desiring to grow with this team.
So it just to push back on that last part, it's an assumption that it's clear that it's not a priority because it's a little bit more complicated. I prefer to stick with what I do know is absolutely true, is this is not the time. So timing may not, like, you may really be motivated, and this just may be that much of a problem in your mind and in your body, and you just may not have it. You may really want it, but we're still at that there.
Thank you for that distinction. That's actually really allowing because it allows people to continue to decide to grow beyond it, knowing that they might not be at the place that they want to actually take it on right now. That's awesome. I think about the like inter-team, because there's also this aspect if you're dealing with like this ego, and then they're doing their ego flare, right? And male, female doesn't matter. Like they're can happen. Like, what is your way of kind of stepping in and kind of bringing two people together when like their hearts are screaming at each other because they're not hearing each other?
Man, that's a great question. Especially like, I mean, we're talking just recently about males and females, and really it's a bigger cross section. In what we do, we have a lot of women that are just hard workers, and they're pumping it out there and they're working really hard, and they really show up more like some of our guys. And because we're working so hard with people in our community that we love, we've got some of the most caring and uh, soft is not the right word, but just empathetic men that never raise their voice. But you can tell when they've been holding on to something. And it's like, whether it's showing up for my wife or showing up to my daughters or showing up for the guys at work that are more empathic, they don't bring things to the surface. And they do have long memories. And it's the awareness of what's going on around us to where we then again say, hey, looks like something's bothering you. It's a good time to talk about it. Well, what do you mean? So when's a good time to talk? Like, I don't know what I mean because I don't know what's going on, but I want to talk. And so what I've realized, especially with my personality as a go, 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 very confident, very convicted, is that the people that don't really have the louder voices to really voice what's going on don't get the opportunity. So I need to be aware of them and seek them out.
Okay, so how do you create space? Like, what is your cadence, and what does that look like for creating space for people who might not be as boisterous as others?
The same as when they're raging, because the last the last thing my daughter wants to talk about when she's upset is why she's upset. Whether she's boo-hooing or just feeling something heavy, she just wants to know that somebody is seeing her, and that in the future, sometime soon, whenever she's ready, we can talk about it. And actually, I'm trying so hard to not say the guys' names, but we got guys on our teams that are very, very similar. They're like the heart and core of our team, but they're on a routine basis getting ran over a little bit. And they're used to it. They've been doing it for 40, 50 years. And I just let them know that, hey guys, on an organizational level, on a leadership level, on a mentorship level, this isn't treating you and you're not treating yourself to the best possible. And the way that we do this is by really finding out what's going on with each other and being able to communicate it. And a lot of people that are empathic like that, they don't want to burden the other person with their emotions. They don't want to be that burden. Man, if you give me the opportunity to show up for you, do you know what I receive? Like, oh my gosh,
Best seat in the house.
you're robbing yourself of the opportunity of receiving from another guy something you never received from your dad or your brother. And it's just so powerful.
I love that. I want to I want to just say, we're talking like masculine, feminine, male and female, but like really it's just there's a whole community of people here, and everyone's, I'm hearing the humanness of this. Like there's like human, however we identify, like humans really kind of end up against this wall of some people are introverted and kind of need to be pulled out to give permission to be big, right? To be heard, to be given the mic. And some people are just out and extroverted. And I think no matter who you are or where you are, like I like how this conversation has created the level of like let's of tools to learn how to kind of like create an invitation and take it down a notch. And I think about as a mother, as moms of women. We are fortunate enough to raise strong women, both of us.
Woohoo!
And as mom of women and our girls, and we get brought to the table for just like a lot of cuddliness. And I think young boys are the same. I think there's a lot of opportunity in being a mom to a young boy too, which would be lovely also. But I know that within myself and my relationship to my girls, that when I just show up for them, when I just like put the phone down, when I just put the business down, when I just put the podcast down, like, and I'm just present, like that's all that they want from me. And I think about my team too. And I think about like when they kind of like yell for my attention because, there's a good amount of them who all need it. It's my job as a business owner to give them the attention that they need, to set up the ritual, to set up the cadence, to set up okay, here's once a week that we have our time, like you and me, and then you and me. And from a leadership perspective, it's really important that we do that. And, I feel fortunate to not have a whole lot of internal conflict within teammates. I deal with it mostly on the construction side, not on the design side. But business is a people's problem. I would say the systems and the tools you use to implement your, what you do can be universal, but really it's about relationships and connection. And, that's why we wanted to have this conversation with you, is because it's funny when I spend time on calls with my business coaches, it's like 90% people problems and 10% tools and tactics of how to run my business.
Yeah, it's just like growing food. Like I'm not going to make this basil any better than it is. It's already in its genome. I just need to be a steward of the soil that's around it. It's the same thing I'm doing with the people. They've got their own stuff. They've got their own way of growing. I just need to find out what it needs, find the companion plants, build onto it. And when we really put things in a holistic permaculture, better than organic way, we're compounding our efforts, not tilling up it all the time, burning everything, throwing it all away, and then starting over every single time. Well, that's what every employer that I ever worked for did. They treated me as an input and they discarded me when they didn't want my output.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that model, the extractive relationship with growing something, be it a monoculture in a large scale field, and you're out for your one thing, and so you're going to eliminate any competition. You're going to use whatever methods needed, the cheapest, the fastest, the harshest most of the time, to just get the job done. That mindset gets you traditional agriculture and traditional products that go into the foods that don't always make us very healthy. And then to your point, when you're growing a team, when you're tending a team, sure, there's plenty of business advice about here's the one size fits all. Here's how you run a team. Here's what you do. Here's exactly how it should go. And here's how, there aren't variations, because to be efficient, this is what it looks like. Versus, in my world, I'm a small business owner, a small team, about 5 of us. And it's always an experimentation around strengths and weaknesses and well-suitedness to certain pieces. And how do you identify? I love what you're describing, like if you identify that basil is what it is, how do you grow that really well? What do you do around to create the solar aspect and the water and the nutrients in the soil, all of that? Fantastic. Let's do that. And if you know that you want a garden where you're going to also have your tomatoes and you're also going to have your parsley and you're going to, you're after this recipe and this is what you're all about, this is what you love in your life, cool. Find those, cultivate them, grow them well, and don't be surprised when they function differently, but give them an opportunity to be their unique self and be aware of each other and, aware as a gardener of what you need to do. I love that mindset. I love thinking holistically in analogies to understand what we could do better and how we treat each other. And I think the quality of the crops and the land are speaking for themselves as we look at what's unhealthy and decaying and depleted and requiring more and more intense input to try to keep it going on life support, versus something like this where I'm imagining in projects where you're working with smaller urban settings and a smaller footprint of soil, it's probably pretty shocking how much produce you can get out of that space, how many people can be nourished by what's growing when you're working with a really thoughtful set of not just extractive methods and the inputs needed in order to extract successfully. But when you're working with a dynamic reciprocal relationship with the soil and what it's giving back to you, honoring it in both directions and working with your team and honoring them in both directions. And again, you're not trying to extract from them the labor to make your successful end product that you go and sell. No, in fact, you're excited to give them the resources to grow their own experience in the opportunity to be involved in growing something to be proud of and to turn that around and nourish communities. And I loved earlier when you were describing folks even coming out of college with their degrees and their insight and their wisdom in various aspects, to plug that back all into a rich dynamic ecosystem of literal nourishment on physical and spiritual and emotional and professional levels. I mean, that's the dream. That's where we should all be aspiring to have these pockets of communities all over, with each of us plugged in the way we're best suited to be in community and grow healthy worlds. Like this is what I want. I want it in Houston. I want it in Portland. I want it everywhere.
Right? I think about this past weekend, I was at a business seminar with Brandon and Natalie Dawson and Cardone Ventures. And, one of the things that was so driven home, because regardless of what you think of those two, if you can strip away any sort of persona that might not jive with you, you find gold. And the gold that I found in that seminar was that make your team's goals your priorities, right? So rather than just thinking of the extractive, like what do they do for me, clock in, clock out, what are their life goals, right? And then what are the initiatives? And you have to measure your team in order to be able to actually act upon these two fundamental ideas. So it's not just they want to make $100,000 a year, right? It's they do want to make $100,000 a year because they see themselves living in this life that is this home that they got to buy. It is this experience they got to make for their children. It is the version of them that feels abundant and big, right? And then we can start to make a series of steps that we need to take in order for us to get there. It's not just them to get there. It's how are we going to support them within mentoring and within our internal ecosystem within Blueprint Earth or in Bethany Rydmark Landscapes. And like, how are we going to cultivate a community and an agreement, right, where we trust each other? And so we're going to measure. So there are goals, there's KPIs, key performance indicators of what you have to do to initiate a race, to initiate a bonus of whatever version that is, to initiate a new experience within your life. And in our team, you don't get raises off of tenure. You get raises because you bring the whole business forward, right? And that is so fun for people when they see like, okay, I have hit my numbers 3 months in a row. That means that my lifestyle is going to change, right? And then the whole business rises together. And that, I think, is the permaculture of running a business within your internal systems. And it takes both commitment to that. It takes mentoring your team so that you can continue to teach them how to grow. And then it takes measuring it, because people love data and people want to do good and they want to be successful. But a lot of times business owners just don't know how to set them up for success with some sort of structure to do so.
Luckily for me, I've lived a life that's made my experiences completely ready for this. When I was working at my corporate job, enterprise sales, they always wanted me to be a manager. And I always told them I'm not a really good manager because more people quit. And they're like, no, but you're a great mentor. And I'm like, I love people, but I dive in so deep and we have such good connection. I want them to be happy and successful. And half of the time it wasn't in the role that they were in. And so through that time, I've got these champions that remember me from 10 years ago that got them out of that dead end position and set them up on their own way just because I was giving them that viewpoint, that perspective of what are you and your wife or what are you and your husband and your kids really looking for, instead of trying to look at them as a product and trying to extract them out of it. Just like my permacultures in Houston, they're going to look a little different than one in Washington or Oregon. Sometimes, sometimes a plant shows up, it thinks it's a dahlia, and it's really a peonies. And guess what? I'm never going to get a peonies to bloom in Houston unless I put it in the freezer. And so knowing that a peony or a mango may not be the right fit, and they're going to be more successful, more happy, more productive, not here. And then they become some of your best strategic partners or your best champions outside going, man, that guy, that gal really did the hard thing. And they helped me. They put me first, not them.
I love that because back when, if we look back to garden ecosystems, what we're doing is we're bringing that annual multi-time a year application of like compost extract to the garden, compost extract to the people. Like how do we let you water yourself in a way that you feel nurtured, and accepting that sometimes that looks like here, sometimes that looks like somewhere else is really important. And it's hard as an owner when you've like invested a lot of time and you've invested a lot of money to get somebody to grow to where you need them to grow. And I know you've been here too, Bethany. You've had some teammates that you like absolutely love as people, but they're just not at the right spot, right? Like, what do you do within those situations?
I think there's back to the desire to understand where are you, where do you want to be, and where is this fit of this soil, this condition right now, where is that nurturing it or not, and trying to be as candid and helpful as possible. It's a puzzle. That's the part of being in real communication and real relationship and real life, dirt under the fingernails sort of. It's tough to live it out and communicate well, but I feel like that's the way to get honesty and integrity amongst the entire team, to recognize who's in the right seat, who's getting the right thing done, how is this going, who's on track to continue, or what kind of other support do we need if we're sitting here together to realize actually we're missing this critical thing. We're missing the marigold at the end of our row of veggies, like we need to be thoughtful. We need a little bit more here in order to make us all succeed. So,
And sometimes the mango or the peonies actually has something to offer that we have to slow down to see. Like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we could do a mango. Maybe we could do that thing up in Colorado that my mom has in her floor where we have hot water going through tubes. And we could do a spiral around the roots and then do a hoop house over it in the winter. Oh man, could we get our mangoes then? And then sure enough. So it's beautiful in creation, and nothing is really quite the same from the others. But when we do that blueprint and we really be honest and we really be transparent, show up, it's beautiful. And you always got to remember that what you think is going to happen may not be it at all.
Yeah. And I think all of this sounds really special and poetic. And, you know, it's something to reach towards. It's something to reach to. It's something as an owner or a teammate, a leader within your business to just sit back and like maybe grab one or two little juicy nuggets that you've heard here and pick them up and try them on and give yourself 90 days to try something on, right? Because you're not going to be able to implement absolutely everything that you do. But if I were starting from ground zero, in hearing this conversation, I would be picking up the Four Agreements. I would be picking up the Surrender Project as books. And I would be starting to just see what the like fundamental mindset is that starts to make you make these decisions about how you interact with people. And I'm curious, Jonathan, if there's other things that you would do from your perspective that are like ground zero, start here and grow.
So the interesting thing about this is I live in Texas, in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas is a producer's economy. And people look at me like, that sounds great. Actually, 9 times out of 10, the husband says, that sounds great. My wife loves it. How does that make sense business-wise? And it's like, turnover costs you money. Bad hires cost you money. Farming in the traditional way costs you money. Not eating healthy food costs you money. We're literally talking about baseline profitability, cultivating the abundance. These are real KPIs. These are how you make a profitable business grow, whether it's your brand, whether it's your products, whether it's your people. Like, this is not woo, it be this is real stuff. And I think just a lot of people haven't, I don't know if it's just my thick-headedness or the fact that I'm convinced and convicted, but I know it's true. And the more people we talk to about it, the more people that really take the patience and actually try to do it are just, it doesn't matter what business you're doing. You could be working in AI, you could be working in accounting. If you're treating your people this way, if you're treating yourself, it's so much more productive. You have such a better value in your life and you're healthier and happier. At the end of the day, that's why we do this, right? That's why I'm here. Be happy and healthy.
And it's great because it's not just impacting the individual in front of you, right? Just the same as in nature, you're impacting an entire family tree, you're impacting a lineage, you're impacting all the future generations of kiddos raised in households with adults that have been treated in a different way, that have grown into their own strengths and worked through their weaknesses and had an opportunity to have a boss say, actually, I'm not here to cut you off and send you packing. I'm here to look at this. Like, what do we do? Let's improve. Let's get better. And then amazing, grow and mature and succeed. That kind of experience over and over, even in small ways and small pockets over and over, will create an incredible crop of healthier lives. And that's fantastic to picture. I want to ask you a question, since we call ourselves Land Language and language is where it's all about. We didn't start at the beginning with any kind of question on the origin of your name. So tell us about choosing this word for your identity.
So as most things in my life, my son found the name. He was working with my buddy Todd. We were renovating our RV, so we were doing woodworking, and my son loves working with his hands and really getting doing that creative part. So he wanted to do this business, and so he found Kalos, and Kalos is, in simple terms, beauty, the Greek word for beauty. But if you go back, it was used in the context of divine beauty. So God's beauty or beauty. And we really believe that the Kalos Project, the project of turning God's beauty to our communities, is through local. And we have to grow people because right now, like, I live in Montgomery County, Texas. $8 billion is what's spent at Whole Foods, HEB, and Kroger, our grocery chains around here. If just 10% of that started buying local, the farmers couldn't keep up. And not to mention the moms and the dads out there that don't have Saturdays free because they got kids in sports or clubs. How are they going to the farmers market? Or let alone 2 or 3 of them to get their whole grocery list. So it's all about looking at the distribution, the food hubs. How do we get people to start focusing on their nutrition? And then how do we look at the supply chain and get the labor out here to the farmers that are producing it in a way they can get it? We're going to be, we are developing a platform now that allows farmers to do the work on their farm with 80% volunteer labor. There's so many mommies and daddies and young people and stepmoms, but father-in-laws and mother-in-laws that want to do this stuff. And they 100% go out there, especially for exchange for some carrots, onions, and chicken, you know? And so, but how does a farmer do that? How do they mitigate the risk on liability? How do they, I mean, whenever you bring a new person onto your farm, you've lost a whole day because you got to onboard that person. And so we believe that our role is to remove the friction that's ever present in our system and to identify it and remove it, work around it. We're going to create, and we are creating, a parallel system for whenever you wake up, whenever you're aware of what's going on, we're here doing the work, and you can come over and hang out with us anytime you want to.
That's amazing. How would you love people to keep in touch and follow what's growing? You know, you said you have this vision, and I would say I'm not worried at all that 70% of it hasn't happened yet. Like, it's exciting. This is building and it's going. So for folks that want to be a part of it or witness and see the example, learn from it, what are the best ways to keep up?
Instagram's probably the best. kalosproject.earth, and then also our website. Actually, just got its first upgrade in 4 years, and it just went live last night. So kalosproject.earth.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming today. Thanks for sitting here and chatting about growing people and growing food. I think there are great nuggets for people to pull away for mostly how to grow people. And if you want to learn how to grow food, you really do need to go follow Kalos Project, because my mind's blown when Jonathan's like, hey, have you learned about this sort of homemade herbicide that is completely safe, and here are the ingredients? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And like, here are Korean farming techniques. And I'm just like, my mind is blowing as I'm talking to you, because there's just so much data to bring in as somebody who wants to do really good, especially because I'm not the queen of the veggie garden and I want to be. That like, I just want to sit around and kind of soak up so much of your wisdom and knowledge too. So thank you for making a concerted effort to put it out there. And I know you've got a podcast that's in the vision pipeline that should be coming. That's probably going to talk so much more about this. But if you're sitting here getting inspired by Jonathan, by his mission, by what he's producing, and grateful that he took the time to come out today and kind of tell us about what happens behind the scenes with the people part of it, just wait till you see what happens in terms of what happens on the ground with the soil and with the people growing the food in Houston. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having us. One of our focus points is uplifting and supporting the leaders and the people that had been doing the hard work before we showed up. So we want to be in service.
Thank you. And I'm going to plug your son real quick, because if you need an amazing marketing team and you want to talk with somebody who's the kind of person that we talked about at the beginning of this, it's Harmony Marketing. And Brandon, sorry, we're bringing you into the podcast at this very moment right now. You're not here, but we just admire you and love your work, and are so grateful for what you do for us to help us grow our business. And I think you deserve eyes on you too if you hear this.
Yeah, he definitely is the type of man I want to grow up to be when I grow up.
Me too. He's my one of my spirit animals. Okay. Well, you take care, and thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies.